Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up, Warped Tour? The state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Marcos.
Your medicine is the coldest war. I'm happier when I hurt you.
It took me the second line. I didn't know it right at first.
Really?
It took me the second line.
It is the second part of that chorus. The first line of that chorus is, I hope you find what you're fighting for. I'm happier when I hurt you. Classic Beatle lyric. Everyone go look that up.
Yeah. Y'all know the vibes up top here. So today we're doing a retrospective on the Beatles catalog.
Where to start? Where to begin?
I mean, we're going to start with Downtown Battle Abbey, which is probably my favorite Beatles album.
Have you heard the White Album?
Yeah, of course. Everybody's heard the White Album. Bro, we were supposed to listen to that today.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, The Record.
You know what's low-key not funny is that there's a Beatles podcast out there with 10 times our listenership.
Yes. The fifth one of that same, like the same podcast has existed in multiple different iterations, I'm sure. And like at least up until the fifth one, it's as popular as we've ever been.
Hello, my yellow submarines. You know, some dumb fucking bullshit like that.
65-year-old.
What is the Warped Tour of the Beatles? Did they have did they ever play Woodstock or something?
Nah, after their time?
Did they play that one venue that everybody gets to play
now?
Yeah.
If they've done well.
What is it called? What's that venue every British metalcore
Downton Abbey Arena?
Yeah, Downton Abbey Arena.
The fucking Queen's Castle.
There was a guy in my backyard today.
Was this like a real physical person, or did you have like sort of a meltdown?
I didn't put
and
my
like you
hands
started
on
seeing
him, so
things?
I guess I can't say whether they were real physical.
What do he look like? Break him down.
It could have been a ghost. I don't know. You suddenly have me questioning reality.
Sam's closest neighbor lives 40 miles away.
No, it's not quite 40 miles. So just to like paint a general picture of where I live, I'm like off the beaten path, right? Like there are houses around me, but also there's like tons of fucking woods around me. It's not like you'd accidentally stumble into my like yard on your way to anywhere that fucking matters, right? So at one point today, like my power went out around noon, so I was extremely fucking bored. And I was staring out the window, and all of a sudden, like I have like yard, and then I have woods, and that goes on for like a little bit, and then you can kind of just make out another house like on the other side of it.
Were you alternating windows, or was it just like one? Like if you had chosen a different window,
I could have missed him.
Could have missed him.
Though at one point the dog started barking because they realized there was somebody out there too. So like I'm poking my window, and there's just a fucking guy walking around in the woods behind my house, and I'm like, what are you doing? You want me to paint a picture of him?
Yeah.
Leather jacket, beanie.
Great. I still have to go outside after we
hitting
record.
the vape early and often. Like my guy's just out in the middle of the woods, just blowing smoke clouds into the sky.
He was vibing. Wait, was he filming a metalcore video?
Hilarious if that was the case, and also would totally charge him money for doing it on my property. And also, if you're a band listening and you need a location to film,
if you had a gun,
video,
you could have shot him for trespassing.
How many metalcore music videos filmed in the woods do you think there's a house just out of eyesight to like the far left?
All of them.
Yeah, you're right. All of them. I don't know why in my mind I thought they were all real authentic, and they were like deep in the Everglades.
Zero shot.
Like,
zero.
They drive
shot.
6 hours out into the middle of like some woods in the Netherlands to film these videos. Like zero chance that anything could go wrong. My guy's out there. He's just walking around vaping. At one point, he picks up a stick and starts playing with it. And this is a grown ass man.
Is he doing like circles directly behind your house, or is it just like? Did he just cross, but within like
circles around my house?
Like, is he just like circling the same parts of the
All right,
woods.
so there's like
behind
my
your
house, there's another house to the left, there's another house to the right. It's all woods behind all of us. He was kind of traversing in and out of like woods behind the house to my left, my house, the house to my right.
But he kept going like back and
coming
forth.
back. Yeah, he was just fucking wandering. I don't know what he was doing. He was just out there vibing. Like my guy lost power, and he's like, "Okay, maybe I'll go
It's soul search.
become one with nature or something." Yeah, it was just like fucking weird, right? So it's like, I lock all the doors, right? Like I got a knife at like my hip, right?
No,
Just
you
in case.
don't.
Yeah, like I don't fuck with this shit, bro.
You
I don't.
described a teenager.
Every like 3 months, you don't see one of those stories where it's like people were sleeping quietly in their house when a man broke in who was on the run from the cop. It's like, nah, bro, I don't fuck with this shit.
Bro, nah, criminals don't have vapes.
Criminals, yeah, criminals, no, not vapors. No, it's fucking weird. And then at some point he just disappeared and he was gone. That was it.
And you'll never see him again.
And the problem is I also don't know my neighbors super well. So it's like, it could have been one of my neighbors and I would have no fucking clue. But also it's weird fucking behavior if one of my neighbors is just walking around in the woods behind my house, right? It's just fucking weird.
How like deep behind your yard into the woods was this person? Or were they like kind of like right on like the perimeter of it?
I don't know, I'm not
or-
good with distances. Let's say 300 yards.
You're bad with distances.
Well, the problem is I could say any amount of fucking yards and you also would know. So what difference
Yes,
does it make?
100 yards is a fucking football field, isn't it?
12 kilometers.
No.
I don't fucking know, bro.
I know you don't know.
He was near enough to my house where I could fucking see him, and he was in my yard. I wasn't into it. Go wander somewhere else.
Is he in the room with us right now?
I'm gonna have to put up one of those signs that's like danger, dogs. Mean ones.
Yeah, you're going to have to put it facing out. Like, you're going to have to put it on the trees facing away from your yard.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, right? Like, I gotta get him at every angle, right? It's like facing
This is
the
a
front, facing the
crazy
back.
tangent to start an episode on. I'm going to reel it back in.
It's probably one of the most exciting things that's happened to me all year, to be honest. What do you got?
I killed that man today.
All right, relax.
Allegedly.
That man was you.
You should have went and lived your fucking metalcore moment with that knife in your backyard. You turn that person around. It's just you with a hoodie on.
42 minutes into this podcast, you pull a vape out. I was like, you son of a bitch. Where's Marcos?
Right.
What are the chances you also listen to Can't Swim this week? This is crazy.
God. You could have like started playing music and see if he was interested.
Yeah, I'm not one for making friends. Like I told you.
You could have let your dog out and like.
I took a defensive position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like you should have taken an offensive defensive position.
Right. Like a friendly defensive, like a
Yeah.
hey, but the knife you can't see it behind my
Right.
back kind of deal. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna wander out into the woods and find out why some guy's back there. That's how you die. That's literally how you die. Every person who's ever died that way.
Welcome back to the State of the Scene podcast. We talk about music.
Yeah. But if you want to hear us talk about music earlier than everybody else, you would go sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. Everybody who signs up gets a couple of free stickers, Discord benefits, the ability to ask us questions on this very show. And like I mentioned earlier, early access to a lot of the content that we do. We also have a bunch of other cool tiers like early access to our reaction videos. You can find those over on our YouTube channel, which is in the description of this episode as well. But if you want to see them early, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. Plus, we've reacted to some Brian Starr's interview. We have a cool monthly sticker that changes every month based on our mood, and they're very neat designs.
It's a new exclusive sticker every month.
Yeah, this one in celebration of Valentine's Day.
They're not mood stickers.
Marcos and I kissing, like the cover of that Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge,
Yes.
My Chemical Romance album, and it came out fucking dope. And you could also be in the credits as a producer of this podcast on every video episode. By the way, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, feel free to leave us 5 stars. But if you want to see us, and if you want to see the man who was wandering in my backyard, I'll just take this camera and I'll walk it down there.
Did you get a photo?
No, but we'll set it up like a security cam so we can catch him next time.
Bigfoot.
You can be in the credits of every video episode of this podcast. if you want to choose Marcus's opening lyric, we even have a tier for that. So plenty to choose from. Let's just say you enjoy the show, you like the music recommendations, or maybe you follow us on socials and you like keeping up to date with everything happening in this scene, then the best way to support us would be patreon.com/SOTS podcast. Also in the description of this episode is our playlist. Every song clip you hear on this show, you can find on that playlist, plus links to our aforementioned socials, our Discord, our merch, all of that good stuff.
The Spotlight.
In the spotlight this week, Liminal and their song Born to Hate. Modern deathcore from New Jersey. You can follow the band at Liminal732 on Instagram.
732 New Jersey area code, maybe?
Who can say for sure?
Sounds about right.
Deathcore from the Garden State. Poe the Passenger and their song Hologram.
A race that I'm running backwards, save me from the rush. I don't really know who to trust now. I've never been a person with the upper hand. I'm always building castles in an hour.
Alt rock from Los Angeles. The teaser for this track, Marcos, literally went viral on TikTok with over 4 million views. Follow them on TikTok at Poe the Passenger if you want to be ahead of the curve.
Does it have like a dance? Is that why?
I don't think it has a dance. No.
No.
Okay, so their pitch for it was they were like, hey, this sounds like Linkin Park meets Imagine Dragons, but it sounds kind of dope. And people were like, actually, yes.
Right, I'll take it.
Actually, you're right. And finally, Kid Prexy and their track In My Head.
People always say that I'm better off all by myself, is what you're telling me. Fucked up in my head, cause I heard what they said, and I will never forget. Oh yeah, yeah. You made me feel like it's fine, no gotta wait in line. This better never end. My heart is cold as ice, now when I look in your eyes, this is
15-year-old pop-punk prodigy. This track was produced by Kevin Thrasher, best known for his work with Travis Barker and Machine Gun Kelly, and Escape the Fate, who are in the news later.
I was gonna say, like, he's also known for like being in a band in the past.
Yeah, but like most recently, you can also follow Kid Prexy on Instagram at Kid Prexy.
Is Prexy a word?
No, but
Like I'm going through like, you know, my mind, proxy.
no, yeah, but then like Plex too, like
Plex.
the but not Prexy. That one's made up.
The Breakdown.
Marcus, we checked out some albums this week.
Yeah, let's fucking do this. We listened to Thanks But No Thanks by Can't Swim.
Hey, heart, stop beating. It's not worth repeating. Your number's dialed in for a while. Hey, heart, I'm speaking. It's not worth completing. Lost in denial. Nowhere, Ohio.
This is the Keensburg, New Jersey outfit's fourth studio album, arriving March 3rd via Pure Noise Records. Thanks But No Thanks consists of 10 tracks and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's Change of Plans LP. And it's a very deceiving gap between these albums because I'm pretty sure Change of Plans was like an October drop. And obviously this being a February drop means that it's only been like a year and a half since we've heard from Can't Swim, but obviously 2021, 2022, 2023, some people might think it's been 3 years. That's not quite the case.
Yeah, you can't fucking trick us, Can't Swim.
That said, they can make me miss them, and I have missed Can't Swim, and I'm glad that we're sitting here reviewing yet another album from this band because I do think that, to show my cards on the earlier side, Can't Swim are still one of this scene's better kept secrets. And I still need people out there to really listen during this review as to why that's the case and why I need that not to be the case by the time LP number 5 comes around. because I want to be talking about Can't Swim as one of the most deservedly popular bands in this scene.
This is fucking fascinating because with the release of this album, one of the things that the band sort of made a point of was that they wanted to be grateful for the level of fandom that they had. Like the fact that, you know, people show up to Can't Swim shows, like people know the words to their songs, people have tattoos of Can't Swim.
I'm glad I've
Like, don't
diminished
take all
that
of
at the
for
start.
granted. Yeah. It's that's kind of why it's interesting that you sort of bring it up here, because I think a lot of this record is a certain amount of the band being at peace with who they are and the level of like fame and like attention that this band has garnered, right? They said, like, specifically, you know, it took us like 3 albums of hardship to get to this point where we're finally like at a point where we're not complacent, but like can take joy from like our accomplishments and stuff like that.
Right, like the grind isn't something that only eats away. Like you can kind of look back and appreciate how far you've come and where you are and all that.
Exactly, which isn't to say that like a lot of what this band still sings about isn't like dark and harrowing. Especially a couple of these tracks on here in particular, but they sort of like, I guess they wanted to like get ahead of this in a way that like they explain that their energy is a little bit different. And I think I hear that like a little bit throughout this. I feel like I hear a band that's more comfortable, I guess, if that makes sense, than the last 2 albums plus EP that came between them. I feel like was a real almost bizarre shift from project to project where it made it incredibly difficult to like pin down exactly who this band wanted to be. And I can hear the band they want to be on this album.
Yeah, because it extends past LP. It includes EP, because I remember that when we first got into this band, it was around the time the sophomore album came out, and then we got an EP after that, then an album, then another EP. I don't know. I know that we got like 2 EPs in the middle of all that, and
split,
2 more albums, and whatever,
3 more
and
EPs.
yeah, and you're right. There's definitely been a lot of stylistic choices that, like, you could tell it was just the band kind of throwing things at the wall, and sometimes it worked in a really impressive way, and other times it kind of pulled me out of not adoration for the band by any means, but like
it felt more inconsistent though. Like, when it hit, it really hit. But then you just have like these misses along the way that didn't really work as well.
I remember when that sophomore dropped, like I looked at this band and I was like, greatest band of all time. And then by the time like the next EP dropped, I was like, okay, well, not quite, but like it would really go back and forth in a really strange way. But
yeah,
to your point, what I hear now is maybe not even like a comfortable Can't Swim, but I hear a more rejuvenated Can't Swim. Like this just does sound like a band that they know what they want to be, and now they're kind of maybe flourishing as a result of that.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I think this is one of those like the product speaks to, directly to like this band at this current state of their career. Like they just kind of sound better than they ever have before, and they sound more focused than they ever have before, and they're more in love with New Jersey than they ever have been before. Another piece of this is like the band also made like
embracing their home state.
The band also made like a note that they were like, we're a band from New Jersey, and like you can hear that all the fuck over this record. There's like a weird amount of pride they take like in where they come from on this album in a way that like caught me off guard, because you could have asked me where this band was from prior to this record and I couldn't have fucking told you. And them coming out swinging, being like, oh yeah, this is New Jersey alt rock or whatever.
You want to know why? It's because it's like this is a showing of force, because like their brothers in Palisades, also from New Jersey, just called it. Like, you know, My Chemical Romance have gone right back into hiding after touring the world for a little while.
Census Fail still out there.
And then there's no one else besides, I guess, Census Fail.
Besides Census Fail, who literally have a song called like the fucking Life is a Guarded State or whatever.
Just close. Yeah, no, yes, they do make a point, and they have like the song "I've Never Paid a Toll" on the Garden State Parkway, so maybe a little of also anti-state pride too.
That is a perfect example of what this band does so well on this album, which is in small asides. Small asides throughout this album carry incredibly deep meanings, which I really enjoy, where this band knows how to tell a story with like a single sentence. You know what I mean? Where something like just the title of a song, "I've Never Paid a Toll on the Garden State Parkway," tells you everything you need to know about like their relationship to where they're from, right? It's not random in the way that it sounds like an old Fall Out Boy song title or something. It's okay, the band is from this Garden State. Okay, they know everybody here. Okay, they've been here so long, everybody knows them. Okay, there's like there's a certain comfort level with who they are in this state and stuff like that. Like they do a lot, and they do a lot of that within songs too, where it's like they'll just have like these casual asides that are just like, "She was taking the pills to help her sleep, I think." Something like that.
Yeah.
And it says they tell so much story in like so few words.
Right.
And it's so fucking impressive that they do it all over the entirety of this album.
Yeah, they do it in like with a high frequency.
Mm-hmm. There's another line, it's like in the opening track where they're like, they drove to the end of Columbus, just like Matt Skiba said in that one song. And it's like all over there. There are these little bits and pieces for you to go and just kind of like think about and pull apart and chew on.
To Matt Skiba, somewhere out there.
Somewhere
right now.
out there. But then like there's also like this more serious subject matter where this one caught me off guard a little bit. Is you get a track like Eliminate about like gun violence in the United States, which is like, it doesn't catch me off guard that bands would be singing about this. It's just sort of, I don't want to say it feels out of nowhere on this album, but it feels significantly more pointed than a lot of the other songs on this album.
I almost kind of expected that it would be too, because it was like the only track on there where it was all capitalized.
Right. Like,
so I was like, oh, this band's going to have something to say with this track in particular.
Right. This is significant.
Yeah.
So, like, pay attention. Like, we're getting
Right.
into it on this one. Which is funny because it comes after I Heard They Found You Face Down Inside Your Living Room, which for me is like the darkest fucking like
Insane
most
song
serious
title.
track on here. Yeah, it's great. Like it's like the darkest subject matter this side of a fucking Gatherers album.
Yep. But like that's also kind of, it's also the appeal personally for me with this band is I really like I think they operate really well in that darkness. Lyrically, I think sonically, like they can kind of push it a little bit as well, and it's what I sort of come to this band for to some extent.
It's funny because I feel like the first song from this band that I really fell in love with was just a very like straight ahead pop punk song that had like a really strong hook to it. And you're right, now I come to this band and I'm like, thank God they're not that.
Right.
Like there are great versions of that out there that I enjoy, but like what Can't Swim is bringing feels significantly more unique to this band in a way that really sets them apart from everybody else. And I'm glad that they found that niche as opposed to like all of the other possible trajectories they had to take.
It's like nowadays definitely not a super similar sound to someone like a Boston Manor, but I think they took a slightly similar approach in that like within pop punk they leaned more towards like the darker elements that would really kind of like just separate it from the rest of the pack.
Right. And it's funny to say that because it's like, truth told, we'll talk about one of the other bands in a second, like pop punk leaning into the darker side, like is not actually that unique. Like there's a lot of fucking bands.
Not, but it's
like, it's that atmosphere that surrounds it that feels incredibly different. And I think that's wherein the comparison to Boston Manor is almost like dead on.
Yep.
Because they both do that really well is they're just really good at like mood setting in that way, and in that sense it's like it makes the project feel really cohesive because like even though you'll get something like Me versus All of Y'all, which is a little bit more of a poppier track, it still feels right at home on the whole of this record.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's also something to be said. Like, there's something to be said about this band does have an ability to sort of give you 3 or 4 different sides of the band, and I think that all of them do play, all of them do work. Definitely have like my own personal preferences, and like we talked about, like with darker and more atmospheric stuff, I think that they really excel. But when they do
it's
lean
like
into like
four rooms all underneath the same roof, you know what I mean? It's like they all look a little different, but they all exist in the same space.
But really like that album. Go check it out when it drops. Again, it's not out until the 3rd, so
that'll be the Friday you're listening to this.
Also had a chance to check out Burning Throne by Acres. This is the South Coast UK outfit's 2nd studio album, arriving March 3rd via A Wolf at Your Door Records. Burning Throne consists of 10 tracks and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2019's Lonely World LP, which was, for me, top album of 2019. I loved that one. It was in the top 10 for me. It was their debut. It really put me on my ass. I was really impressed with that band right out the gate. And I'm glad that we're back with a brand new album, and I'm happy to report that it's another fucking banger. It's actually excellent. I did have a little bit of worry heading into this one because it does sort of seem to be the theme for the year, and I don't know if it's just maybe more some fault within myself, but like none of the singles had entirely clicked for me leading up to this album, and we were at like 5 by the time this got in our inbox, so I was like a little worried. And then hearing all of them within the context of this record, they all certainly worked, and I think that all of the other tracks that fill the spaces and fill out the rest of this album do another bang up job of reminding me what it is I like about this band. You know, we talked earlier about, you know, atmosphere with Can't Swim. Acres, that's essentially their bread and butter is building atmosphere. They're a like a melodic hardcore, metalcore, post-hardcore, like some combination of all that. And I think that they do all that while also packing a really strong emotional punch, and we pick up almost like hauntingly right where we left off with Lonely World.
Two things here.
Except now it sounds like a lot more anthemic, which is a cool progression of sound.
Crazy how badly you want me, or you make me want to just call every band core, and we can just break from all of the pre's that we drop in front of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you're right, is you get a band like Acres who feels like they flow in and out of sort of every variation of it. So it's like you want to call them one thing, but you don't want to like misrepresent them. So it's like, no, they're not medical, but they're like post-hardcore, but they're like, right. You know, they got like
it's a little slightly deathcore times.
Yeah.
not quite this band.
Not quite. And also, it's crazy to me that Lonely World was 2019, because this feels like one of those perfect versions of a band where like you blink your eyes and like 4 years has passed.
So not sure how much reading up on this album you did. Mm-hmm. So vocalist, guitarist both went on record as stating that they had to rediscover how to write like music due to the pandemic. This is very much an album that, this one probably would have came out a while back if the world didn't fucking end for a while there. And they talked about how they had to write things in not solitary confinement either. I'm blanking on the word, but
you're getting so close.
I know,
you're getting
right?
so close. It's fucking crazy.
But they had to write things sort of like alone and then bring it to others. And I know.
It's fucking.
I know. It's crazy.
The thing we all did during COVID is like I want to bang my head against the wall right now. I was like, are you kidding me?
So anyway, we talk about how obviously, yes, it's been 4 years since this album debut in the sophomore, but they do go on record and mention that obviously the pandemic had a lot to do with the writing and the release date. Isolation.
It's literally, it was going to drive me up a wall if I didn't think about it. Okay, here's the thing that I love about Acres, all right? Acres don't remind me how good Acres are. Real ones already knew.
I was going to say, like, that was the opposite of my review so
Real
far.
ones already knew. Acres remind me why I love the entirety of this fucking British post-hardcore scene so
music, bro.
It's not just that, though. It's not just that. It's this fucking specific British post-hardcore scene that's so goddamn fucking moody all the time, and they're so fucking good at it. You mentioned Boston Manor a little earlier with the other review. They sort of fall into this as well, but it's bands like Caskets. It's bands like Holding Absence. They're just like Casey that we talked about a few weeks ago. Like, they are so fucking good at communicating how fucking sorrowful they are at any point in time. It's like Acres had to get back and learn not how to write music again, but how to communicate their sadness again.
Right.
And they slid right back into it, like just
with ease. How they make it look
crazy.
anyway.
You talk about the atmosphere of these types of bands, and specifically Acres. It's like that atmosphere is heartbreak. Like, these bands just know how to sing about heartbreak, and they know how to do it so well. And songs like My Everything that have like just these casually dropped, like, heaviest line you'll hear in your whole life about like, I just want you to like lay your head into me. It's like, oh my fucking good. Like, what the fuck is in the tea over there where these British dudes just like know how to write this stuff so well?
Kind of on that same note, love when this band slows it down significantly, and on tracks like Visual Hallucinations, I think they are somehow in their bag at their strongest. But like, I think that song also is a good like precursor to a track like My Everything, where they amp it back up a little bit, and then they're dropping those really hard lines. But that track, Visual Hallucinations, is a standout, and so is that closer for me, because it's this band's reminding themselves how to be sad, and in turn are reminding you how to be sad. And it's easy to get lost in a track like Lost in Our Own World, which again is the closer. It's, I don't know, it's something about Acres that really just, I don't know, like it's hard to really put into words exactly what it is, but that same feeling I felt when I first listened to this band and threw them on my top 10, I am re-experiencing all over right now. And I know we're way off from the end of year shit, but I love Acres so much, and they did a really great job of reminding me why with this album.
Yeah, there's just something in the water, and these bands are so good at capturing it. And to go back and sort of speak about that variety early on, where we were talking about having trouble pinning this band, it's like this opens with arguably the heaviest song on the album, which features Garrett Russell's Silent Plan. And we actually talked about it last week when they dropped the video for it. And to go from that to a track like Hold On, which was another single as well, which just has this like amazing like earworm of a chorus. Wherever this band treads, they do it like excellently.
Well, like they tread, and there is some risk involved. Like, I think that Nothing featuring Garrett Russell is probably easily the heaviest in their discography, and like Garrett is allowed to be themselves on that track. Like, we go the fuck in, and it really reminds me why Garrett's by and far one of like the most fun screamers in this scene at this moment. It's a really nice fleshed out feature, and like that's maybe not something I would have expected heading into this one is a track that heavy, like before having heard the single is what I mean. But there's definitely some risk here that's happening.
Yeah. All in all, this is just like tragically, devastatingly heavy post-hardcore,
and it's perfect.
And yeah, I love it for being exactly that. It's good to have Acres back, because it's certainly been too long, even if it feels like it went by just like that.
Right, an eternity. But move on to There's Nothing Worse Than Too Late by Real Friends.
I can't even remember
This is the Tinley Park, Illinois outfit's newest EP, released February 24th via Pure Noise Records. There's Nothing Worse Than Too Late consists of 9 tracks, clocks in at around 27 minutes, and is the follow-up to 2021's Torn In 2 EP. And I mentioned that it's 9 tracks. It is a little fluffed out. So we have 2 acoustic tracks at the very end, and Torn In 2 was also a longer EP that was fluffed out. Like that was a 30-minute affair, which had like 5 minutes or 5 other tracks that were all just reworks.
Deceivingly long EPs.
Yeah. So like when I tell you a Real Friends EP is long, it's not quite long.
Hey, it's as long as you want it to be. Okay. It's as long as, hey, every album or EP is as long as you want it to be.
I guess so.
You hit the play and pause button. You're tired? You need a break? Stop it.
How do you feel about the second Real Friends EP in the past 2 years?
This is the actual coming out party.
Yes.
This is the actual return of Real Friends. After losing their original vocalist, and having to kind of, replace what was a very familiar voice and almost an even more familiar face. This band is sort of like put in a position where it's like they have to not necessarily rebrand, but like they're kind of put in a position where they have to like prove themselves. You know what I mean?
A little bit.
It's like this felt like a band who was kind of on top of the world. Like when they dropped that last album, like the last full length they ever dropped, I guess. And then they kind of have to come back and reset that. For me, the Torn In 2 EP was like, okay, this is like things are going to be all right, but this is like things might be better than all right. That's what this EP feels like to me.
Right. This shows a lot more promise than that initial EP did, for sure. And I think part of it is also what I feel like has to do with getting a little bit more material, a little bit more taste, seeing a little more of what it is Real Friends look to be providing, because it's definitely a different, maybe not like attitude exactly, but it's a different approach, a different sell lyrically.
Initially I feel like I would have agreed with you, but I don't know if that's the case. This to me feels a little bit like Real Friends sort of showing exactly what it is that they do so well, which is this incredible sort of power and energy in their sadness, where the it's bizarre, right? Because this band does such an incredible job of creating this contrast where the songs are, for all intents and purposes, like anthems, but the subject matter never speaks to the overall tone. So it's like everything is a sing-along, but everything is a sing-along about the most depressing thing you would ever want to sing along to. You know what I mean? So it's like, in a sense, they're almost all anti-anthems, right? It's like singing about how heartbroken you are, singing about how depressed you are, singing about how like miserable a situation is. But it's like confusing in a way. Because when you sit there and think about it, none of the subjects actually speak to the delivery, but that's kind of what's so fascinating about this band is how good they are at getting away with it and how consistently they do it, especially over the course of this EP.
Okay, that's a fun way to look at it then.
It's what I think I love the most about this band is you get a song like I Don't Have to Do That Anymore, which is by far probably my favorite track on here, and what I also really appreciate about this band is that they name their songs essentially like the hooks, and like it's not terribly difficult.
Really dependable. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like all of these songs are like, hey, it sucks, and I always had to like watch out for you, and like, be careful not to make you mad. Like this is kind of like an example. And the whole song is like, whoa, I don't have to do that anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's every song. And it's like, it's kind of crazy how fucking good they are at like creating that contrast.
What it feels like you're describing to me is like, what's that? The fucking Lego movie song where it's just like, I'm so happy or whatever.
Right.
And it's like the most soul crushing like visuals.
That's what Real Friends are, is that they're the Lego movie of bands.
I guess so.
Or you take something like Feels Like I Always Lose, which is like
So that's my favorite track on here.
quintessential example of like screaming along to a chorus, right? But it's like you say it out loud and you almost have to stop yourself, right? Because it's like what you're singing is it like it's delivered so powerfully, but
Convincing,
it
yeah.
undercuts itself by nature of like what it is, the like subject that we're tackling at any point in time. And that's every single track on here. I think the most fascinating thing about this band is that I think acoustic versions don't really do the songs justice the way that like you would almost expect them to, because what works so well about this band is that contrast. So it's like taking it and taking any of these songs and turning them into a ballad actually works against them, even though like on paper it feels like it would work well.
Yeah, that is like it's a little like of a granular critique, but like I don't think that I think Real Friends needs to slow down with the revised whatever, like the acoustic stuff.
Well, I mean, the overall, like I don't mind it, right? Like whatever, put out as many remixes,
Well, with something like this, I think
that you want to. But I mean, like if we're reviewing something as like a full product, and I would say that like the acoustic songs do not add to this. They might. In turn, they might add to this if they were released after the fact or something like that. But
so that was more what I was getting at. Like in the meantime, I think that what we have to do is give a lot of this new material just its own room to breathe and room to operate. And I think that what you'll find is that like, man, this is a better 7-track EP than it is a 9-track EP. None of us yet are foaming at the mouth for any acoustic version of any of these songs because we're just now getting familiar with all of them. We're just learning all these new tracks, and I want a little bit of time to do that before you turn around and give us a taste of them again, essentially just to remind us they exist, or a different version of them. Or
my
whatever.
brain is broken a little bit now, where I kind of look at everything in Spotify analytics and try to figure out if like certain decisions are made to help meet certain goals or to maybe help songs get picked up on a playlist that they otherwise wouldn't be on and stuff like that, because suddenly if you have a playlist called like acoustic pop punk songs, none of these 7 make the cut, and then suddenly you've got 2 other options,
right? And that's why it's mostly small critique.
Not to look at everything soulless, like this band might have wrote a couple acoustic songs and thought it'd be fun for the fans to hear them. Like I don't want to be a scientist about every aspect of like the choices a band makes and what songs they do or don't add to an EP. But like, yes, if we're speaking from like my personal experience with it, is like I was really good with the 7 tracks and I was fine with the 2 acoustic ones, but I think
the only reason that this is a topic of discussion right now is just because it's the second EP in a row that's done this, and it's like, just give me the regular material.
Am I crazy, or was the first one almost like 5 for 5? Well, I mean, to say that it was like the 5 tracks and
yes,
then
it was
5
exactly
reimaginings of them. Yeah.
So like a lot more restraint this time around. But
I think Real Friends is in a good position right now in their career, where they are in this slight rebuilding phase where they can try out and do things and see what works and what sticks and what doesn't. You know what I mean? And then maybe we're seeing a little bit of that, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we have 2 EPs and we haven't gotten like a full length yet, where this band is kind of like feeling out exactly what it is that they want to do.
To sort of like circle back to your opening thoughts, it feels now like we are starting to see them come out of that rebuilding phase and into like this is all going to work. We're pretty good. Like I would imagine now the turnaround for like an album is going to be a little shorter, and it feels like this experiment of, what does Real Friends look like in the wake of having lost, Dan back in the day. Like we're gonna be good. Everything's gonna be fine.
Who left the band? You made it sound so much darker than maybe you intended there.
A little, I guess. But like I would imagine it feels good now to know that like I don't know. At least as a fan, it's good that it feels like we are out of the rebuilding phase and on.
Right, like they shook the nerves off a little bit, and now they can kind of like go full bore.
Yeah.
Back to defending pop punk.
Back to defending pop punk. One last album on the week, and we saved a good one for last. Director's Cuts by To The Grave. This is the Sydney, Australia outfit's third studio album, released February 24th via Unique Leader Records. Director's Cuts consists of 11 tracks, clocks in at around 43 minutes, and is the follow-up to 2021's Epilogue LP.
This is one of the craziest albums I've heard all year. For a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, and it's one of those albums where there's a lot more than meets the eye or meets the ear even. And I think that, like, on its surface, for me, I could tell you a couple of things. I think that this is like a popcorn deathcore like album. Like if you like really big breakdowns and cool moments, like, man, is this one packed full of it, but that's surface level. And I think you start to peel the layers back more and more and more, and you'll find insane shit to like about this band that you didn't even realize was there in the first place. And I think that you discovered some of the you're sort of having this I was relayed a lot of the information that we're going to discuss during this review, and you sort of like learned it on the fly while listening, and I think that's a cool experience.
I experienced this record just like you did the first 4 times I listened to it, right? And then I went and sort of read about a little bit what the band was trying to do with this record, and then once I found that out, dug into some of the lyrics and had a fundamentally different experience with this album. But my first experience is kind of exactly how you described this, where it's like you just wanted to fucking fire up your Xbox, right? Jump into a COD lobby and like let this be the soundtrack to mowing down your enemies, right?
Oh, kick on,
and it works so well just as that.
Yeah, Gears of War 2, pull out the fucking the chainsaw gun and just start ripping through people, because at the end of the day, Sam, this sounds
Gears
like
5 now, which is such a funny for you to throw back
like,
that far.
What's funny is like this ain't just your fucking Xbox One deathcore.
This ain't your Fortnite deathcore.
This isn't your Series X deathcore.
Yeah, for sure.
This is some Xbox 360 deathcore. And when I say that, I mean like this is Halo 3. This is Gears of War 2. Okay? This isn't Gears of War 5. It's not Fortnite. None of that shit. Okay? This isn't Black Ops 4, Black Ops 3.
No,
this is Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking that type of shit is what we be on sonically.
This OG deathcore, yes.
Right. Yeah, it's popcorn deathcore. I had a good time listening to this.
Okay.
Like, it's a fucking blast.
Me too.
And like and that's all without retaining any of the lyrical significance, which actually paints a really fucking depressing photo for a lot of different reasons, which include what?
So no. It's like I almost want to stop you there, because it's just like look at like the names of these songs. Right, we're talking about like Red Dot Sight. We're talking about Manhunt. We're talking about Cut Off the Head. We're talking about Die, Rise. Like these songs, like again, everything on the surface level, it's like has you thinking that it's so easy to just like not dig into this whatsoever and just kind of be like, okay, we got like this acts of kindness. Like let's talk about this fucking like, and their videos are like kind of like this horrorcore ass
well,
like
I was gonna
vibe.
say, like until the
beats like beat down like aesthetic.
Until like the video that dropped today, I remember the one for Red Dot Sight being like this big like alpha wolf swing your dick fucking deathcore, a lot of cool edits, a lot of cool shots,
nukes going off in the background while they're like hard posing in front of a Jeep. Yeah. It's so fucking. But by the way, almost across the board, everything this band does works so much better with a visual attached to it, because this band is insane when they're fucking in front of a camera.
Yeah, really great, like full package, I guess.
Yeah, 110% energy. Okay, and then I went and read that this album was about the horrors of animal cruelty, and just looked at it from like this completely different perspective that I didn't have the first few times. And it's so crazy because the first few times I kind of enjoyed it, but I sort of walked away from it thinking like, yeah, this is solid, but I don't know if it really stands out the way I was hoping it did. And then I go and I'm like, okay, this album is attempting to expose a societal and environmental hell on Earth, and it's communicating it through like what like the meat packing industry and you know, it's making, you know, an incredibly strong case for veganism, and it's doing it all through this like incredibly visceral language of just like literally killing those who protest or do not agree with your viewpoint, right?
Yep.
And we're talking about like full, the track BDTS, gut the belly of the beast, let the guts fall down, cold cuts we thaw 'em out. Tonight we storm and set fire to the slaughterhouse. Essentially, the entirety of that track is just like, again, this incredibly visceral type of like writing that's all about like, essentially like killing and it's almost like it's trying to do two things at once, right? Like it's kind of trying to say, it's like, yeah, let's go fucking kill and kill and kill and kill. And then it's like, this is what we're doing to animals. You know what I mean? And it's like,
but I think
they're playing like two levels here, right?
But no better example than playing both sides in a sense than the literal album artwork for this, because I look at it and it's like a lamb head and you can see like blood and then you're assuming like something got cut or whatever and it's dead.
This is every deathcore album ever when you look at it, right?
Sitting there and I'm like, this is some like powerful ass Die Hard is Murder shit. Like, yes, like cult, like a cult shit. I'm down for it. And when in reality, it's like, yeah, that is an example of a slaughterhouse. Like, now you're just like, well, fuck me. Like, why do you have to...
So it's like, that's to the grave. It's like, this is every deathcore band ever until you dig slightly deeper, and they're one of the more unique ones that I've ever come across.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, Marcus. Going back again to those lyrics, reversing the bear trap, which is pretty much about like killing the people who are like eating animals and then feeding them to themselves. It's fucking nuts,
so
this album.
Funny, getting all of that context, and you look at like everything differently in here when you read like reversing the bear trap and you're like, oh right, it's like, you know, pointing the gun back at like these slaughterers. And it's like, when I saw that, I'm just like, it's a cool collection of words that can't mean anything important. Yeah, I don't know, this is a really cool album, and for me it didn't really stand out as one until the track Found Footage, which is
absolutely
head and shoulders above the rest in my opinion, outside of like Die Rise, which it's a little more straightforward sonically, but it's like a 7-minute closer, and I think it works really well. Yeah, it really is. But Found Footage is like nothing else on this album, and it essentially starts with like a minute of like this swelling synth behind this like manic, almost like spit rapping or storytelling happening at a very fast pace.
Right, like rapping I feel like misrepresents it. It's like a slightly quickened pace, but what it is it's really just kind of like storybook deathcore where they're delivering these lines that are written out like a story, right? Like we're building and we're building and we're building, and like you're learning more and more and more, and then you hit like this crescendo and this like peak moment, and then you get to like the third act, and we're trying to like...
But like before any of that, what really separates the 3 acts in this song from like every other deathcore band is that like every other band in this scene are predictable in the sense that I expected.
Bro, you didn't have to take a shot at every other band in this scene. Goddamn.
So Found Footage, like it's the first minute is that like quieter, you know, it's building, but it's like a quieter, more like, it's not heavy, it's not deathcore, none of that, until the minute mark where it's suddenly like the drums kind of kick in and it goes straight insane deathcore, super heavy. And if you're not looking at it, any other deathcore album, you would have expected that to mean it has kicked into another track. And the fact that this one doesn't, and it's all self-contained within this one track.
And it's still technically kind of doing the same thing that it did in the first verse, right? It's just doing that like at a heightened pace, right? And that's why it's so good at building almost this like anxiety as you're going. It just really like is one of the most intense deathcore songs by doing it completely different from what you would like expect. it was far and away like the shining star on this record.
It literally like gave me goosebumps the first time I heard it, and especially without any of the context of this animal cruelty stuff, because initially when you're listening to it and you're kind of picking out what you can from the lyrics, it sounds like someone's like planning a kidnapping or something. And like, this album certainly has like this evil feel all throughout, and it really shines through on this track without any of that context, because you hear about, grabbing the glove, grabbing the mask, grabbing the getaway car, like, if we have to do anything, we have to get out with her. And it's like just this insane picture that it is painting the entire time. And then you dig into the lyrics and it's entirely different than what you had envisioned the song to be. And then you also really pick up on, they're telling a story, but you pick up just on just how much story is actually happening and how much actually takes place within those 3 minutes. And it's easily far and away one of the best songs on this album and of the year so far.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It's also got a video for it that, very directly interprets that song and visualizes it. We reacted to it on our YouTube channel. Link to that in the description of this episode. I will say just across the board, To the Grave is one of my favorite finds of the year. And they absolutely come out swinging.
Yeah, lots more than meets the eye initially with this act, and can't recommend this new album enough.
Yep. Before we move forward, I just want to remind everyone once again, patreon.com/SOTS podcast. If you want to support us, you'll also gain the ability to ask us questions on the podcast. Like this week, Caillou asks, nicest thing a fan has ever said or done for the podcast? I'll go first. So I'm going to be honest with most people. Probably every other week I get a message from someone telling me how much this podcast means to them, and it is literally the only thing keeping me going. So I very much appreciate those infinitely. As someone who's constantly getting lost in the numbers and trying to figure out what really is a dictator for like the success metric of this show, just having somebody send like a message and be like, hey, this show pretty much gets me through my day. Having this a podcast account to go to, it gets me through my week, stuff like that. It means the world. I'll never forget once we got a message from someone who was a doctor, and they were like, I just want you to know how much this podcast means to me, like going in for my late shifts and being able to listen to this like while I'm working and stuff.
This is like during the height of COVID. Or
I do remember,
and it was like,
And like reading a message like that was just like, it's insane. It's nice to have that reminder every once in a while. Or, oftentimes we also have a lot of bands who reach out and who are grateful that, we post about them or that we share one of their songs or something like that. And, it also, once again, that kind of stuff, it means a lot to me because it reminds me, it's like, oh yeah, remember when you started this podcast so you could just tell everybody about this music that you liked? Like, it's nice that like somebody like pulls me aside every once in a while and they're like, hey, you have no idea how much that means.
No, really well said. I think that one thing that stands out to me, and I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's probably in a storage bin from one of your moves somewhere in like your basement. But I remember once that fan, I don't remember who exactly did, and I hope that they still listen and are still a fan, made us a flag.
Yes, I do remember.
Like
that.
It was painted or something, and it. I remember exactly what it looks like in my mind, and I always thought that was the coolest thing, just because someone clearly went out of their way to dedicate their own personal time to make us something, and then also send it, and it's its own like one unique little thing that only exists somewhere around here, and I always thought that was really nice.
So that was Kyle, and shout out to them. I do still have that flag and I'll treasure it always, and I don't know if they still listen to the show, but yeah, it was immensely appreciative. Over time doing this show, a lot of people have like come in and out of this podcast. It's kind of crazy.
They didn't die, I don't think, but
it's crazy some of the names I still see who still like follow us and interact with us that I've seen for like 10 years now.
Yep.
It's like, man, I can't believe you still fucking like us. Marcus, in the news this week.
The news.
Paramore's This Is Why sells 67,000 units in its first week, which was only 3,000 less than After Laughter did back in 2017. Pierce the Veil's The Jaws of Life sells 27,000, which was about half of what Misadventures did back in 2016.
Let me tell you something, Sam. This feels like one of those classic 2017, 2016 SOTS episodes.
For sure.
Kicking off the fucking news segment, talking about record sales.
Yeah.
What game? What are you getting at? What game are we playing here? This is because I know what you are getting at. I know what you're attempting to get at, and
Which
that's
is what?
that the quantity in sales reflect the quality of the album.
No,
But I
you think I'm
that
setting up some sort of...
Paramore, shut the fuck up, let me speak.
Yeah.
I think that Paramore obviously exists in their own separate fucking plane of existence, and what we see there is actually...
You misconstrue.
Well, I'll construe however I like moving forward. And what I wanted to say is that 67K, a drop-off of only 3,000 for Paramore is really healthy, regardless of the level of mainstream in which they operate in terms of popularity, because like even the biggest of big artists, take like The Weeknd for example, there have been insane drop-offs even like within like 3 years, like After Hours, Dawn FM or whatever. Like there's pretty significant steep drop-off. I think that Paramore is definitely aided by the amount of time it's taken between albums, as many years pretty much as with Pierce the Veil and Misadventures. I think that Misadventures or the Jaws of Life sales are a bigger indicator as to what it's like to sell albums as a scene band closer to the ground.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. When I say that, like, oh, hey, the Jaws of Life did half of Misadventures, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. More than anything, it's that bands sold across the board more albums back in 2016 and 2017 than they do nowadays. And Paramore is outside of that conversation, because I don't think you can really hold bands that have broken through in a bigger way to that same standard. Like when you look at Misadventures, you're talking almost peak Warped Tour. You're not talking peak Pierce the Veil. You're almost talking peak Warped Tour, right?
Yeah, and like 2016,
and I think a lot of bands were
was
doing that, right? Like you could look at like Of Mice and Men, who would have dropped like
fucking Restoring Force
around
then,
the same time, right. Like Motionless in White putting out like their second or third album. Like bands within our scene, like Bless the Fall was doing like 20K with like Hollow Crowd. Like bands were just Hollow Bodies. I'm sorry, we're not doing those numbers, but like the scene was peaking. I think what's interesting is that like I feel the scene's peaking in a different way right now too, and I think Jaws of Life actually performed a lot better than it would have otherwise for that reason.
It's interesting because what's funny is like 2017, around that time is probably when we officially stopped paying attention to those numbers, because I remember around that time was when those steep drop-offs were really starting to show. And I remember looking at like, like we would check like some news article and it's like Upon a Burning Body did like 8,000 this time 2 years ago, and this time did like 1,000 sales. And it's like, man, that's just not a fun way to look at this scene, because it just shows that like, I don't know, it's not really indicative of the popularity at the time.
Yes, precisely.
But it feels so self-defeating in a way, seeing those numbers, or it feels defeating in those ways, seeing those numbers. But that's actually an interesting point, because, and it, like, you could also potentially take This Is Why as an example there too. Like maybe there is some like signs of life in the actual physical sale. Well, I know
Right,
this isn't probably all
but for what it's
physical
worth, you
sales.
know, this is, you know, accumulative units based on like streams and physical sales and stuff like that. So obviously the way that all that stuff is counted is actually sort of very muddled and not. It almost feels like they made it up throwing darts at a wall. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, a million streams counts as like one sale, and
it's fucking
like,
insane.
what? And it's why now a lot of us go and look at like monthly Spotify listens to try to actually get a slightly better idea of where a band sits. Though a lot of people say that doesn't actually necessarily paint that clear of a picture either. So if we sort of take everything, right, and boil it down, it feels like this is a very successful week just for like the scene in general, and then these two artists. Like the fact that like Pierce the Veil and Paramore had like an article on Billboard.com that was like, hey, the emo's still alive, and it's maybe more fucking alive than it's ever been.
Well, man, with Pierce the Veil too, it's interesting because not that any of the songs on here went viral, but this band is coming off of viral success again on TikTok.
Yeah. And then like the When We Were Young festival thing, and like all of that, I feel like, you know, all signs are pointing upwards, right? Like that band, like everyone was going to check out that new Pierce the Veil album. And I feel like most people did. And I've maybe people circled back who hadn't really cared as much in the last few years. It'll be curious to see moving forward, like if we have another like artist this year who can like post numbers that are anywhere near this, you know what I mean? Like who else? Like where does Fall Out Boy land between these two artists, right? Is it higher than Paramore? Is it? But you know, I expect it to be higher than Pierce the Veil, no question. But
well, isn't that like sort of right around the corner now? Like, isn't that March? And I feel like none of the singles have really taken off yet. So I don't know. But then I guess I feel like maybe none of the Paramore ones have. But
I feel like the excitement still exists, and I feel like it exists on the back of emo culture sort of start rising back into popularity, right? Where it feels like everybody's like, yo, Fall Out Boy's back, and it's almost like, did you even listen to Fall? You know what I mean? It's like, and you don't want to be that guy, but a little bit of you wants to be like, how many people are just sort of jumping on the wave because it's like exciting to be a part of this scene again in a way that maybe it hasn't for the last few years.
Curious to see how things shake out. Maybe it is something worth keeping an eye on for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Or at least the immediate future. You know, we'll get a Fall Out Boy album. We'll probably get a Blink album by summer, I would expect.
Hey, we might get an album from
Escape the Fate, who released Hate Myself.
If I knew some witchcraft, I'd make you disappear. 'Cause I hate you more than I hate myself. I hate you more than anyone else. When you're up in my face, you have to be a fellow.
The band is currently on the Rockzilla tour supporting Papa Roach and Falling in Verse alongside Hollywood Undead, and they are teasing that new album. It's, you know, the announcement is soon, they've said.
It's literally like the header on their Twitter page. It's like, new album coming soon.
Oh boy.
You know, our label.
Couple more things. So this one comes with a video. This song technically did come out a few weeks ago. Finally got its video, so we're finally talking about it. And important to note that I'm pretty sure this is the first one without our old friend Kevin Thrasher, their guitarist, in a very long time. Kevin's been with the band for like
Ever.
it might be 10
ever.
years at this point. I don't know.
But what's funny about them is that you go and watch this video and it's like they're down one guy, but they're actually up like three guys
Right.
somehow. You know, it's like suddenly this is a 5-piece again, which I feel like gives a lot more. Like there's so much more energy to this video than I feel like the last couple videos we got on the other album cycle, where it was like, you remember the video where it was like the band kind of like playing outside of like a trailer, and then another one was just like literally Craig Mabbitt by himself. Like it was definitely a very different energy that they had, and now it feels like they sort of came back a little bit and is like a little more of like the rock band ass, dressed in all black, a little less flashy version of Escape the Fate.
Like some death all around. Yeah, a lot of like the classic stuff. Classic visuals. We didn't really talk about It's one of those videos where the members kill themselves.
It's one of those fucking videos. It's one of those fucking videos. You've seen it a million times before. You don't have to go see it for that aspect because you know how it ends. But for what it's worth, there's some fun bits in it, right?
There's some fun, like lyrical
They get
bits
creative
as well
with
that actually lend themselves to a video like that. So it doesn't exactly feel like super phoned in that sense. Like the pre-chorus goes something like, if I was a hitman, I'd make you disappear, or if I knew magic, I'd make you disappear, or whatever. And it's like,
right, but they're talking about like looking in the mirror and stuff like that. So like they're singing about themselves the entire time, right?
And then like it cuts to like, you know, Robert Ortiz like holding a fucking like about a 360 no scope himself. And
I liked the pop punk energy of the last album. I will say I strongly prefer this version of Escape the Fate that just kind of sounds like that second album, honestly.
yeah, and it's good. Like I'll take this any day.
I feel like this band has such a fucking identity crisis over the last 10 years. It's nice for them to kind of settle back into the band that I liked best, or the best variation of this band, you know what I mean? Or, you know, one of the best variation of this band fronted by Craig Mabbitt.
Fully agree. Who doesn't have an identity crisis?
Meet Me at the Altar, who dropped their brand new song, Cool.
I'm lying on the couch, you're cooking me dinner. Low lights, just you and I. Obsessed, the sensor on your face is you're done for forever. So am I, and that's why.
With a K. Debut album, Past, Present, Future is out March 10th on Fueled by Ramen. The band is also going to be playing the Kelly Clarkson Show on March 2nd. Marcos, that day they also start a spring tour with support from Young Culture and Daisy Grenade.
The Kelly Clarkson Show is such a fun, like we always get like, you know, the late show or whatever, and like
right.
Jimmy Fallon.
I'm already asleep.
Right.
I'm already fucking asleep.
He's already
You think I'm
asleep.
going to stay up for the late show?
Like
Late show,
fucking
maybe.
Jimmy Fallon, but like
Late show,
Meet Me
maybe.
at the Altar getting that Kelly Clarkson spot.
Also,
I'll
I
take
like
it.
Kelly Clarkson so much better than whoever hosts the Late Late Show. I don't even know who it is.
Is that fucking
Is that
Corden?
Corden? Is
It might
that
be.
Colbert? They're no Clarkson. I can tell you that. But did they win American Idol? I don't believe so. Can't
Is
say
Colbert
for sure
still
though.
doing a late show?
Haven't watched it in years. I don't know. I've never stayed up that late. We've been over this. Am I up at 2:00
Conan
on a
ended.
Thursday though to watch Kelly Clarkson? You bet your ass I am. The hook on this song is so fucking insane. It's wild. It's like it's almost like the most forced hook I've ever heard in my life. But
They
like
sell it so fucking
it like
well.
exceeds that and then becomes brilliant. Like it comes back around. It's like essentially literally just them pronouncing the word cool with an extra 22 syllables. And making
Right.
it something entirely in and of itself. And the video for this is really fun too. So we have the band in what is a house decorated by teenagers exclusively.
It's very 2000s. Like the vocalist is like going through the pages on those old magazines that you would see that used to have like Disney stars all over them, and it was very like just, you know, very pop culture.
Yeah, we're talking about
vibes,
teen magazines.
essentially.
We're talking about, you know, like every magazine that had like 5 Seconds of Summer and like One Direction on the cover and
Downstairs,
stuff
you
like
have the
that.
other two members sitting on these very like brightly colored, inflatable, like pool furniture.
Mm-hmm.
It's like visually, this is very, this is a very big treat.
They premiered this on MTV, which I think, or at the very least, MTV.com.
I wonder if that also plays into that. Like,
That's what I mean. That's
aesthetic.
exactly what
Yeah.
I'm getting at. Is I wonder if that like that was a
It
very
must.
specific decision because like it spoke to the type of video that they were making and stuff like that, and like the era they were trying to capture.
Feels so weird to get pointed to MTV in 2023.
It did catch me a little
For a
off guard
music
because
video,
it doesn't happen a
really,
ton,
yeah.
right? You know, which probably made it stand out a little bit for what it was worth.
Point North also in the news with their new track "Safe and Sound."
I know you think I'm always in control, but it's hard for me to let things go. There's nothing left to talk about. Now you got me thinking hard. I've been getting bad news all night, swimming in a safe place. That's what I try. You'll never get a chance to rewind. You say
The track features Sam, the ghost inside.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, their vocalist anyway, Jonathan Vigil. This follows last year's singles Recover and Dark Days, which features Jairus Johnson.
Yeah.
So Point North, always pulling out the all the stops with their feature selections. We've had Kellen Quinn, Jairus Johnson.
Yeah.
We got the Ghost Inside now.
Yep.
I feel like there's one or two in there I'm missing that were pretty insane as well.
Actually, for what it's worth, they all like are incredibly dramatically different choices.
Well, that's
for
what I mean.
features.
Like they're all in the scene, but like what's cool about Point North is if they're gonna have someone featured on a track, your best guess who the fuck that's about to be, but they're probably gonna crush it.
So the question is here, though, was the Ghost Inside chosen for their metalcore prowess or their talent on the ice? On the ice.
I think we both know the answer here. I think it's the talent on the ice. Like,
so this is a hockey video, right? And it's like Point North, they like square up against what I'm going to just assume is the entirety of the Ghost Inside, because that's the story I want to tell here. And they have a hockey match, which at some point ends in a fight because it's a hockey match. John from the Ghost Inside pulls his mask off and he like starts screaming at them for the metalcore verse. It's a fun video.
It was a little bit like it is slightly reminiscent of that old Did I Remember video. I'm made of wax, Larry. With the,
oh shit!
What the
that's
fuck
a
are
good
you made out
point.
of?
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, which had Mike from Devil Wears Prada also pull off the fucking umpire mask and square the fuck up.
It's callback.
Scream in each other's faces. And I think that in the video, all that devolves into a literal fist fight, and you get the referees going crazy. And it's a pretty watchable video. You know, and I say that as a person who could give a shit about hockey.
This guy doesn't fucking care about hockey.
I don't
at
care.
all.
I've always said it, dog. Fuck hockey. Fuck those pucks.
Love Point North. Fuck hockey. Picturesque dropped their brand new track, Hopeless.
Trying to figure out what fucking day it is. Nothing ever changes and you're stuck with it. Yeah, you're stuck with it. I've been here before, bodies on the floor, cold shit burning on my throat, staring at the door, focus. I think I should go, buried under smoke, slowed in. I'm feeling so.
It's their first new song since their 2020 album, Do You Feel Okay? Where the fuck has this band been?
Man, it's crazy because I really started to feel this one in that, like, over the break, I went and specifically spent time with Picturesque at one point because I realized how long it had been between albums.
Years.
And I just missed listening to that band. And obviously, like, we only really get time in between fucking seasons to go check out bands that aren't always freshly relevant, that are always in the news. Like, God, it had been like a year since I'd listened to Picturesque, and only getting like an album from 2020 to go back to. I know they have more material than that, but what I meant to say is that like it's this absence of new material has been felt, and I'm glad that drought is over.
I'm more glad because this band comes back and they sound better than they ever have before. It feels like Picturesque has been honing them skills, right? Like they took 2 years to just like fucking master their craft. And this is like a Picturesque that feels like stronger than they've ever been before. Like that album was good. Somehow this one song is better than the entirety of that album.
Faster, stronger, more confident. And it's all fucking, I didn't know the rest of like that song, but
faster, stronger. I don't remember either.
More power.
Yeah. And you can feel it all in the video too, where there's like this presence to the band, and it's so much fucking hard posing and shit like that with like a BMW, and we're drifting.
You say presence to the band, but
yeah.
It's just a fucking. Is it Kyle?
I mean,
is
it's just
guy's
Kyle.
name up there?
Yeah. But there's like there's a presence to Kyle that makes up for the rest of the band not being in here.
Yeah. Well, it also helps that like, you know, having those fucking those NASCAR cars out there drifting. Like at some point, vocalist is like laying down, and you see the car drifting around them in a circle.
It's such an incredible shot because they also have like such a straight face for the entirety of the videos, you know, like very it's actually just a Wednesday for me, and like
right. I'm just about this.
Yeah, this is just kind of like my thing.
Yeah, it's just my day. Blind Channel in the news with their new track Flatline.
Me to
The single follows last year's Lifestyles of the Sick and Dangerous, and per the band via bravewords.com, is the beginning of the next chapter of our career. It captures the energy of last year's 130 shows and combines it with a Berlin rave.
This band describes what this song is better than I ever could have.
Yeah, I mean, like,
No surprise. This is a Berlin rave.
this is a Berlin rave, but
With a little metalcore sprinkled in.
a lot of that nice heavy energy. It's not
lot
just
of-
like rave energy in this.
130 shows worth.
You contain 130 shows in a bottle and unleash it into this track.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
And you put some
it's-
dope beats behind it. It's just fucking crazy. It just feels like this band, like, it's weird because this band looks and sounds like From Ashes to New, but somebody said we got to get some synth drops in here,
Right.
and like somehow it works.
Right? Yeah, because like you said, they spent like a tour with Electric Callboy, and like, man, does that fucking show.
Yeah, 100%.
And not in a way that I'm saying like, yeah, this band's biting that sound, but like in a good way is how I
Like, they were side stage watching a little bit of what Electric Callboy was doing, in the same way that the rest of us were sitting at home watching Electric Callboy,
Right.
and all of us were going, we need more of that.
right there.
There needs to be more of that in this scene. Whatever they're doing, please give me more of
They
it.
get back to the van and they're looking at each other, and it's just like, was that kind of a Berlin rave in there? Just really reminds me of back home.
No, I feel like what would be absolutely hilarious if Berlin Rave actually represented something that wasn't what we're reading.
What we're
it as
actually-
being literal. Like a Berlin Rave ends up being like something like insane, you know?
It actually means something.
It's like they
right?
walk out of a regular, like they walk out of like something, and they're like, it was a fucking Berlin Rave in there, wasn't it? Right?
Hey, 5 metalcore guys walking to a Berlin rave.
It's I'm gonna start using it like in everyday conversation, you know? Like I'm gonna walk out of a meeting and turn to the guy next to me, there's a fucking Berlin Rave in there, you know what I mean?
Hot summer day, you're just like kind of like adjusting your shirts. A fucking Berlin rave out here.
It was fucking crazy. It was like a Berlin Rave. It was fucking insane. Weathers dropped their brand new song, all caps.
You can say, relax, I was gonna text back. I found out or I left it in the cabin. Same shit, just a different bed. Might be better off if I left it on red. And I love who we were last week. You see his name and forget about me. And one ring and you don't call back.
The track features John the Ghost, aka John O'Callaghan from The Maine, and is off their upcoming album, Are We Having Fun? Out May 5th on Sumerian Records.
John O'Callaghan is like a really great late night TV show host name.
Stop.
Like I'm just saying, if
Stop.
John ever like quits the main, quits being the ghost, got an opportunity on the Late Show.
He's got the look for it too, you know?
Look for
He's
it.
got a very professional look, very clean look.
Weathers fucking rule. This feature accompanying Weathers is a great one. I think that.
What's fucking crazy about this feature, though? What's fucking crazy about this feature?
Bruh.
It's the first third of the song.
It's the first third of the song.
Like, it literally
it's a
is
very
just like, this is the main right now.
It's a non-traditional feature, right? It starts off as just a main track.
You have to listen to a minute of this song to know whether you like Weathers. The first 45 seconds is just like, are you in or out of the main?
Are you gonna like this feature or not?
Yeah.
And then at some point, obviously, it transitions into the Weathers vocalist, and then they are suddenly singing the same chorus that they gave to John at the top, and kind of proving that, like, no, this is very much our track, and they take it back from John the Ghost, and I don't know, it's a really impressive track, really catchy, extremely catchy. I think that the video adds a lot from like a watchability and a listenability.
There's just like this video is like they threw the whole fucking budget at the wall, and there's like 22 locations. Like we go from
22
like
outfit changes.
a jailhouse to like a hospital to like a plane to like a courtroom to like this fun room. It's just like,
John's physically in the video.
yeah, which is always appreciated, and not always the case. Across the board, just a really neat band. I think Sumerian has a winner on their hands.
Totally. Our Promise are in the news with their new track, Panic Waves.
I gave my best to say alive. And panic waves of perception just made a distraction and realize.
It's the first new single from this German metalcore sextet following standalone single Stay Away, which released in October of last year.
You must be asking yourself right now, how do you get to a sextet? Like, why would you even need 6 guys? Why 2 vocalists who don't play instruments? Because they don't have the time, because they're too busy singing, and they're doing it really fucking well, and they're doing it together, and they're doing it as a team.
Rub your eyes, because right, you a little blurred, you see 6 figures, like they're there, and then you listen to the music, and you kind of have to like clean your ears a little bit and pinch yourself, because you realize like this is very much the real thing. This sounds like a 6-piece metalcore band in the sense that this is every bit as nostalgic sounding as you would expect it to be. Think back to every Risecore band you ever loved back in 2010, 2011. And I feel like
suddenly the sound is nostalgic. Right, I think we've hit that point like 10 years later.
We've re-entered the era of running back this exact style. I listen to a band like Our Promise, and suddenly I'm having flashbacks of the 2 guys in Michael Relocate and that band and that sound.
And more recently, someone like I Prevail.
Yeah, and it's working pretty well.
It's working extremely well. The chorus for this is absolutely fucking huge. I shared this on Twitter, and like very quickly people were just nodding their heads and going like, yeah, no, you're right. This fucking chorus goes insane. Right.
No notes.
And then the video for this is fun too, because it's like a singular location, but it's one of those videos where like they really just know how to like utilize their surroundings in a way to make the video look very clean.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where it's like they don't do a whole lot with it, but they keep your attention in spite of that.
Arrows in Action have dropped their new song, The Credits.
I go back and change the ending scene, rewrite all the lines and change the leads, and cut out all the parts that made me mean. I know I can't replay that day over, but I'd kill for one more night with you. Still searching for closure. The credits are over.
This song includes features from Loveless and Magnolia Park and is off their upcoming debut album, Built to Last, out May 26.
Has a fucking amazing video to accompany it. So we got a Neck Deep video last week. We talked about it. They recreate certain specific movie scenes in that video.
But they're funny.
Somehow.
Brace yourself.
We do that in this video as well, and we even get one of those movies all over in The Notebook.
This is a fun trend, by the way, because like we run it back exactly 1 week later, and even some of the movies are the same, and I'm still fucking in love with this.
Well, I was going to say, some of the movies are the same. Arrows in Action potentially even do it better. This is an extremely watchable video. It immediately endears you to the band and their sense of humor, and pile on top all that, the fact that you've got Loveless featuring on here. Julian sounds magnificent, comes on this smooth as butter. And then later on in the track, Magnolia Park, their vocalist Joshua Roberts jumps on it and does the same thing essentially. And it's like a real great combination of voices. I think that Arrows in Action really constructed a really great track to specifically feature those 2 vocalists on. And it's all just good things all around. I'm really happy with the track. Having not really spent a lot of time with Arrows in Action in the past, like this is speaking personally, this is a really great point to jump into, and one of the easiest recommendations.
I heard this fucking song, I was pissed. I heard this fucking song, I was pissed. Not enough people told me to check this band out the way they should have been. You know when you hear a band who is like, yeah, I've seen this name before, I'm kind of familiar with them, and then you check out a song and you're like, holy fucking shit, why hasn't everyone been screaming at me to listen to this
why
band?
Isn't this the only thing flooding my messages?
Right. Why didn't everybody tell me the vocalist has some of the best hair in the scene? Like, why weren't people telling me? Go tell somebody about the State of the Scene podcast. If you like it, leave us 5 stars on Apple or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Good fucking bleh.